Hi, how are we all doing? Yes, it's another day, another podcast, and this time we're going to speak to yet another doctor. Alan and I are meeting with Dr. David Luke. Now, Dr. Luke is an expert, one of many experts in his field. He describes himself as a scientist, and I seen him at a seminar in Edinburgh in the last week, which was called Seeds Talk, which was the history of magic mushrooms. Now, don't take this the wrong way. The talk wasn't about, people getting off their tits on, hallucinogenics. That's not what it was about. It's more evidence-based on how psilocybins, hallucinogenics can help people with, anxiety, depression, PTSD. It's more the facts around the psilocybin type drugs. Now, there's loads of different names out there. There's loads of different, hallucinogenics out there. DMT, ayahuasca, magic mushrooms that grow free and wildly in Scotland. So this discussion is evidence based by a professional, someone that knows what they're talking about, not just hearsay, not just what he said or she said or that experience, this experience. This is a professional in the field who is going to answer some questions that we have and maybe educate us slightly on the background. Now, the talk that Dr. Luke gave the other night opened my eyes to the bigger picture. Going back in time, and then he went back in time to like ancestors and stuff like that, and then brought it forward, and then just to what we know today. And right, I'm going to get off because I'm rambling, so I'm going to let him talk, and Alan and I are going to talk to Dr. Luke, and we'll find out more. I mean, I've got questions, I've got experiences. Alan will have questions and experience to talk with him, and then maybe David, Dr. Luke can, sort of let us know what's going on, with those experiences from a professional scientific view. And that's what I really want to capture from this conversation, is the scientific professional view on opinions, feelings, facts. That's about it. So, excited. It's been a bit of a rush to get this one. He's only up here for a couple of days, and thankfully, I can't thank you enough, Dr. Luke. Thank you very much for giving us some time for the Fly Fifer podcast. Hopefully this is another record for someone to look on when they need information on facts. Hopefully. I'm excited. I'm excited about this one because it's one that I was interested in anyway, and then I've kind of dragged Alan along, and I know Alan's interested in it, but poor Alan was away walking and chilling out doing his thing, and I'm on the phone, right, Alan, Dr. Luke's going for it, right, get your arse out here, and he's like, do you want to do it, can you do it? And obviously Alan, being the compadre that he is, has dropped everything to come and do this podcast, because I think he knows this one's kind of feels important to me. So it's good of Alan to drop everything and come and assist me, because at the end of the day, as I keep telling you, Alan is the eye candy, and someone confirmed that the other day by telling Alan. Right, anyway, I'm going to get off. Next up, Dr. David Luke. Thank you very much, guys. Oh, before I go, please subscribe, like the channel, click the wee bell, and you'll get notified when we go live. And thank you very much for the support. The channel's growing very slowly, but do you know what? Organic, as Alan would say. Let it grow organically. What we're trying to do with the podcast is get quality over quantity. So that's why it's not every single week, because we want to get quality people on that are educated, full of facts, that then go on to educate us monkeys, because we are all, yes, just another monkey. All right, speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
The Fly Fifer and Just Another Monkey podcast. Talk is cheap. Let's talk.
and welcome along to another podcast. It's me, James, aka The Fly Fifer. I am here with Alan, aka Just Another Monkey, and I'm also pleased to introduce Dr. David Luke, Associate Professor of Psychology. Yes, finally we got a psychologist on camera. Just a quick intro of why David's here is I went to a talk that David did in Edinburgh. It was called Seeds Talk, The History of Magic Mushrooms. I got that right, I think. It was that title that caught me months ago because as a youngster, I used to take magic mushrooms. And I thought, oh, here we go. We're going to find out about the history about this. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I have to say, David, it came, for me, being that simpleton in life, it was a bit academic for me. But I thought, nonetheless, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab what knowledge I can from it. And then the other intention was this. You know, it was a two-pronged thing. I ain't going to lie to you. I came to that to listen, but also to ask you to sit with us and try and educate us mere mortals. So, David, I'm going to go on to you. Could you tell us a bit about who you are, why, who, what, when, where, why? Over to you, David.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on the show. I guess I've always been interested in psychedelics, including magic mushrooms. I actually went away to study psychology, so I was just a mere mortal as well before I became a psychologist. And that was but intentionally because I'd been kind of playing around with my brain like a neurochemistry playset and wanted to try and understand the experiences I was having with psychedelics and went away to university. I mean, I got thrown out of school and originally, so I had to go back and study at night school and ended up at university and was kind of woefully disappointed that on a psychology degree you learn absolutely zero about psychedelic experiences. And so I was then kind of forced to actually go back and then do a PhD and end up putting back into the academy what I'd been looking for, which is, you know, some insight or knowledge about what psychedelic experiences are and how we can understand them. I still don't have much of a clue and I have more questions than answers, but at least now it's like on the curricula. So yeah, that's my journey.
Right, okay. And the Seeds Talk thing, is that like an organisation that you're affiliated to, or do they hire you in to do the talks, or what's the association there with Seeds Talk?
So Seed Talks is an organisation set up by my friend Willie, who was working in various other organisations which were putting on talks, mostly around London, but around the country. And so he's just set up his own kind of branch of that. And as with those previous companies, they always ask me first to come and give some talks because apparently I might know something. I don't know. So if you hang around long enough, people think you know something. But I've done a lot of kind of public lectures, so I get shoved to the front of the queue, really.
Right. Okay. So looking at the reason I wanted to get you here was to find out a bit more about, in particular, magic mushrooms. But again, I've not got an agenda here, so it's just the whole chat around it, psilocybins, like ayahuasca. You know, that sounds like somewhere in the sun to me. You know what I mean? Rather than a psychedelic drug. And you hear there's so much on social media now, people talking about ayahuasca, DMT, magic mushrooms are sort of every now and again, but, you know, they're the ones that grow freely here in Scotland and as they do pretty much all over the UK, I would imagine. I'll no reference the golf course that you spoke about the other night, just in case they get inundated. But it was just, what's your take on all of this? Like, what are we missing if we don't? What are we getting if we do? You know, that's my kind of thought, because I've heard Alan go on about you have to smash the mind to then open the mind. But then that's Alan's look on things. So I've sat listening to Alan talking about that for months and months, and I kind of look at it now and I think, right, okay, there is definitely something, because since my experience of taking magic mushrooms, it changed my life. It turned me into the person I am today. It's made me think that something's not right with what we are fed regularly on TV, what mainstream we're sort of, that they're trying to program us with. You know, and the mushrooms did that for me, I would think. They opened my mind. Whether they smashed it, whether they didn't, I don't know. but they opened my mind to another alternative out there. Have you got anything that... I know I'm splaffing away here.
I'm jumping in, mate.
You can jump in
I'm
anytime.
ready. I've got my Speedos at the ready. I'm diving in shortly.
So, what do you think? What's your take on that little idea that it changed my life?
Yeah.
Personally, I think for the better.
I think that's just you, James.
Just me.
No, I'm joking. Actually, I mean, because it's something you hear a lot. I hear a lot. Obviously, having been in this area for decades, I constantly hear stories of people, their lives were changed by these experiences. My own too. I can't imagine how my life would be if I hadn't taken psychedelics as a teenager, actually, which probably wasn't a good idea. I was a bit young, but so I'm not kind of suggesting other people do that. But people do get their lives changed by these experiences because they are so extraordinary and different to our ordinary, everyday, waking style of thinking, and they give you the opportunity to look outside, to peer outside of the tesseract or the box or whatever you want to call it, and see something different going on, and look at world in a very different way. And people's perceptions and beliefs change because of those experiences, and often people can learn a lot of things about themselves, why they are the certain way they are, or even about society, and it allows you to have these perceptions where you understand that a lot of what is you take and assume to be normal human behaviour is actually kind of cultural scaffolding that is kind of being imposed through socialisation and through our consumption of media and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it's not an uncommon story, and they have the power to really transport people to a different perspective, which can be life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we carry on, we're not saying you should or shouldn't, and Rebecca, who's in the room with us, I should have said earlier, I'm not pointing at you, I'm pointing at the camera. We're not saying you should or should not do psychedelics. So please take that. We're not saying it's good or bad. We're just saying that my experience, David's experience, or any other out there's experience was good. Mine happened to be all good, so win-win for me. But I better let the monkey out the cage because he's rattling here. It's his turn. Right, fire away, Alan.
Right. Why was it suppressed? Why is it frowned upon by society? The shattered mind is nothing to do with drugs. Drugs will not shatter your mind. Society will, and man will. And unfortunately, mine was shattered. And the one that got me was solvents, namely glue. Now, when I talk to psychologists, and I've had the sit-down conversation over coffee, no on a bench, no under the guidance of a clock, just a conversation. And that happened within the last 18 months. Almost 32 years to the day since I sat down and heard them tell me that they thought I was highly intelligent, although I had brain damage. Once they reversed it on everything else, the monkey in me says, didn't tell them nothing about what you're thinking, but it had always been there. The glue, as I shattered my mind with the realisation of what had happened to me, when it really hit me, what had happened, suicide was my only option. The mind was shattered. I'm trying to piece it all, get it all back together so I could go. And there was something changed within me that brought the monkey. And the only way I can describe it is that they passed each other. They would go head to head. And the monkey says to him, are you done? And the asshole, which is man, says, if this is life, I don't want to be here. I need to go. And the monkey says, right, you sit in the passenger seat. I'll fucking drive. And it literally used the glue and stuck it all back together. And what it opened was, I talk about people taking DMT, psilocybin, anything that they want, mushrooms or that, and they look through the letterbox beyond the great beyond, outside your box. With the glue, because I'd taken it, not just to one bit or another bit or another bit, I just kept going and going and going. I smashed the door off. There is no door. So nowadays, if somebody says to me, you should try this, I think, what for? If everybody in the room was all swallowing something, bar me, I will elevate that high. And the only way I could describe it is if you said, if I wasn't a fat guy, and says, let's go for a run. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm running, and I turn because I can't hear your voice, and you're way back there with the hands and hips, like, fucking wait for me. My head goes that high that people actually think I'm on something else, cocaine induced, but it's life. I just elevate my mind that far without inducing it, and I've said it for years. My wife is the best witness I have, because I said, why do I have to induce my mind to open something that was there originally? Man tells us it's no socially acceptable. my big thing is, why is it not socially acceptable? Is it because we can see through your game, see through your agenda? So what took you to the path to think, is this wrong? What makes you think, oh, I'm going to try that? Is it just inquisition, or do you think, there's a reason why you're telling me no to do that, so I'm going to have to poke my finger in?
Yeah, wonderful. What a story. It's a rare day. I mean, often you hear about psychedelics changing people's lives, but I like to hear that, solvents had that effect on you. Interestingly, solvents, but also glue, it dissolved your mind and then glued it back together.
But is that not what it is, though? It's the ability to trick something in the mind. It doesn't matter whether, because
Absolutely.
right now, this child has got this, that, and other, so they'll look at their wee book and they'll say, right, what's the symptoms? Okay, he's got ADHD. He's got, bipolar. And they just put badges and labels and balloons on people because of diagnosis. To me, I think it's not that it's a misdiagnosis. I think that whatever it is that allows you to open is the exact same. So if it's glue, acid, mushrooms, something just goes like that, click, and just opens that door that I'm saying I smashed. Because people have trips and they say, I saw that. And you say, so that's very childlike, is it? No, so you know what you're doing there. No, you're still in the basement. You need to come up a few levels. To me, that's I think it's an elevation of the mind that you climb up that ladder on your own, experimenting. It's just what you use, what key you use to open that.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think the interesting thing to remember is that like psychedelics are just a way of changing your state of consciousness, your mind, right? And it could be anything. It could be meditation or hypnosis or breathing techniques, or it could be trauma, it could be stress. People have spontaneous transformations all the time. A lot of people have them with psychedelics, or occasionally even with glue. So it's not what the chemicals do, or the chemicals themselves particularly. It's like the capacity of our own mind and to kind of shift our perceptions and think differently to how we ordinarily think. We get stuck in our own kind of mental ruts or close down our perceptions and ways of seeing the world. And it's like having a break, however that break occurs from your normal everyday mode, can give you a lot of insight. And it needn't be psychedelics or glue. It could be anything, right? Mm-hmm. And like you say, you don't feel like the need to take anything now. Your mind's open.
That's what I mean. And that was latterly one of the guys, very interesting me, man. He had tried to explain the whole agenda, how you'll microdose and then you'll get to there and then you just go full on, bang, 15 minutes, and that's you come back and say, right, okay, and then in half an hour, can you go again? No, you wouldn't want to go again. So that says to me, so it is a real thought process that once you've kicked the door off the hinges, that it doesn't go back on. It's constantly open. Because that, to me, honestly, because I've grown up inside this individual bubble within a bubble within a bubble, and I would never let anyone in. Nobody could penetrate that at all, and that's all the clever people that tried. I just wouldn't let them in. It's me that holds the keys to open it up. Now I'm looking and I'm seeing other people like, wow, they even talk the same, they look the same, they're doing the same thing. And I think, well, that's exactly what I thought, because through the time, I would question my own mental health. Is it just me? Am I the only fruitcake? Now I'm seeing loads of fruitcakes. This is a great place now that everybody seems to be coming up. Do you feel that on the journeys that you did, do you feel there's a lot more people coming up or coming out the woodwork as you travel?
It feels like it, but then it's hard to know for sure, because perhaps as we become more open ourselves, we're therefore tuning in and engaging with more and more people. So it's hard to kind of gauge it, like have any sense of, are people becoming more and more open and understanding themselves better? I'd like to think so. I think psychedelics are probably having a part in that. We're having a renaissance of interest in psychedelics, and increasingly people are taking them and changing their worldview, changing their lives. Some people also then struggling with those changes and having difficulty integrating their experiences. But yeah, I mean, it feels like people are opening up more. Yeah, absolutely. So, certainly in a time now where people are more open to the idea of psychedelics.
And back in the 70s or the 60s, when LSD was there, which I'm not a big fan of the manipulated side of this. If it's natural, just leave it alone. Then you make synthetic versions because you didn't control that, really. but the door seemed to be shut and it got caged again. Like everything else, all the mystical arts and things like that. It's witchcraft, burn them, drown them, get rid of them, shut that down.
I think it's connected. It is a kind of witch hunt.
Do you think it'll ever shut down again?
It may do. I mean, it's we've kind of probably been suffering under it for, hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Certainly in this part of the world, first of all, the Romans came along and killed all the Druids, and then we had all the kind of witch hunts and the Inquisition. And those women, mostly women, not all, but were probably herbalists. They were probably exploring old states, taking psychoactive substances. So we got shut down then, and then we rediscovered them in the kind of like 1940s with LSD, and then later psilocybin and magic mushrooms, and get shut down again after about a decade or so, because these things are inherently anti-structure, anti-hierarchy, anti-authority in many ways, and that is problematic, I think, to the powers that be. And there's some ways of looking at it. Like there's an anthropologist by the name of Charles Laughlin, and he says we live in a monophasic culture. I mean, we only really value one phase of consciousness, and that's the ordinary, everyday, waking, alert, go to work, maybe drink some coffee to make you more productive, and maybe you can get pissed on a Friday night as a bit of a relaxation. But essentially, we only really value the ordinary waking state of consciousness, whereas in a lot of indigenous cultures around the world, they value the importance of dreams, like that they share their dreams in the morning, and it may guide their daily choices and decisions and activities. And they also take psychedelics, and they use them for healing and to transcend time and space. But in the West, so-called, or whatever you want to call our civilization, our culture, we only really value the waking state of consciousness. And so constantly, these things keep getting oppressed. It seems to be threatening to our basic constructs of society and culture. But I feel like it's changing. You can't keep these things hidden forever. And we have the internet, and everyone's talking about how beneficial these experiences are. So it can't really be suppressed.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't see it being shut down now, which obviously there's all these tales and stories, decades old, thousands of years old, Bibles and da-da-da. It's the Great Awakening, because people are waking up and they're seeing it. For me, mine's is a reversal, because if somebody says to me, what was your awakening moment? I've never slept. I've been awake all this time. It's been very boring way up there in the clouds. I've got to come back down to find something to entertain my head. Because the visions, if you've never ever sniffed glue, and I would never recommend it, and this is a big one that I want you to try and answer for me. Well, to me, you go into a dream state, and it's 3, 2, 1, boom, you're gone. And then 3, 2, 1, you're back in the room. You're back in the room 3 hours later in a totally different place with no recollection of where you've been, but you've been somewhere. Well, they dreams as they are, when you've got Dolores Cannon, who say that when the conscience is shut down and the sub comes out and it goes for a tour and it goes and meets other people and then comes back and then bang, you're back in the room. Well, I was doing that as I was awake. So I'm walking in dream state. So the things I saw, and I saw some fantastic things, I believed them 100%. And I believe in that world far more than I believe in that one, which is let's go up, let's go on the treadmill, let's do that. And if you're lucky, you'll get to go and get pissed on a Friday and then get up and start the whole thing over again. You think that surely was never why we were. The big one was the dosage and everybody trying it. Now, to me, as a trauma victim, I wanted to smash everything. I wanted to just destruct the whole lot. So where they would maybe, somebody that's done something, look, you only want to take 2, really, well, give me 5 then. It was never a greediness, it was just a wanting desire to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So for me, if I say to someone else, look, do this, that's because my mind is conditioned to a different level. How does somebody that's no got trauma, how do they, do you know what I mean? How do you feed them in? Do you just go gently, gently and then lift them? Because, do you know what I'm saying? If I think that somebody that suffered trauma, their mind has an ability to go far further than somebody that just has had a normal life but wants to, look, I fancy, I'm sick of the rat race, I want to try something different. If they were to do the same, I think that's where you get these people that just bang and they never come back. I saw guys doing it, taking the same as me, and the guy never come back. He's been he's been AWOL ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
And that was with LSD.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Certainly people, like as a general trend, like who've had a lot of trauma, have a great tendency to dissociate, to have these kind of extreme states of consciousness, and therefore probably also have a capacity to go further or want to go further, in kind of altered states and psychedelic experiences or on glue or whatever. And the question is, well, how do we do that with people who aren't traumatized? How do we take them there quickly, or do we take them there slowly? And I don't think there's any real answer to that, other than in a lot of the studies that have been done, if you give people a high dose, the majority of people will have a transformative mystical experience, right? They will go there, and which for most people is great. If it's well held, but it can be challenging for some, and we don't necessarily know who those some are, right?
That's a gamble, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's what you were talking about.
What was that?
The dosage thing.
Aye, totally, the dosage thing. Because, David, you hit on this the other night, the microdosing thing is almost, I think, if I'm right, you were kind of edging on that. It's kind of like a buzzword. It's one of the buzzwords that's been adopted, that people are taking small amounts to be able to get out the door, out of bed. But I think what you were saying is back when we were taking them, you boil up 50 in a cup of tea and you'd get a couple of hours or an hour or something like that. But there was guys back then with us. And like what Alan's saying, these guys, same life on the street, same doing this, that, the next thing, everything the same. But 50 to me made me relax, lie back. 50 to him made him climb the wall. 50 to another guy was on his back. Couldn't he do, what is it that's in us as humans that makes those differences? Is it just, rearing, childhood, your life, that are making people go different ways? I mean, from your experience and research, what is different in us all that makes us have different reactions?
And is there a difference?
Yeah.
Because there's definitely a difference.
The one guy that can do this and the one that can do that's fine. It's the ones that are on the social media saying, try this, try that, without knowing what the circumstances of these individuals are, because I think that each mind is set at different things with individual backstories.
Totally.
And that is, if you've got a predisposition to be an absolute violent fucking idiot, trust me, you unlock that monkey and the person sitting near them, they're going to see it. That's the thing for me, is because I kicked the door off with the monkey. I've always used the two. There's the man and the monkey. It's always been there. And there's the inner child. It's when the man and the monkey shake hands and they realise that, look, the monkey can go and do all the LSD you want, all the psilocybin, do what you want. The arsehole will still be here to pick up the pieces and go to get the job on the Monday. And the monkey's like, fuck you. They both know that none of them's ever going to win, but they both stand to lose. And mind was an absolute handshake that they come together and says, right, I understand. None of us are going to win here. None of us, but we both stand to lose. And that, right, okay, now that we've made that, we're missing something. It's that, where's the wee guy? Where's the inner child? That, well, you were supposed to be fucking watching him. And they've got to go back into the past and into that darkness. And I think that's where the LSD and everything is taking these people right now. And that's my concern, is that if they know, right, okay, so what you're telling me is if I do that, I'll unlock the door, no fucking books, and see if I've won a prize, to find what's missing. Because I was saying that earlier, is that right now you've got guys who'll get to an age and then they rebel. To me, they've just suppressed the monkey. They've never let the monkey out because they've gone onto that treadmill and they've come off, and next minute they want to get their ears pierced and get Harley and a younger model.
So, midlife crisis.
Exactly. But is that just a suppression of that inner monkey, that once they let that out, it can go haywire because they can lose totally? So it's that fine line of, something's suppressed, but how much have you actually suppressed it? Because now everybody wants to seem to open the door, or certainly look through the letterbox and have a look, because that's what I'm saying, this thing feels huge. Maybe it's not that I'm just aware of it, because obviously I grew up in the schemes where anything, any vice let's go. There's nothing to say. It's like,
You want to escape.
you have to escape. It is a living, breathing hell. So anything that came along, if it's LSD, we'd all try them and they would make you laugh and everything else. But me, the way that I was, and that's why I always question my own mental health, was how is it just me that does way differently? So it's no that I would take too much. It's more the things I'd done in it. So I was never an abuser of substances. I used it. And I think that's where people are missing, and that's what I'm trying to say again. I didn't have the vocabulary to say it, but people that use it, and I know, I worked in nightclubs, and there's always drugs there. And this one lovely guy says to me, can you get me an LSD? I thought, you're in the wrong club for LSD, mate. You're going to end up climbing into a speaker or something. He said, no, it's not for you, it's for studying. I thought, studying on acid? That's fucking bizarre, done it? I saw this guy later, and I'm not going to say the profession, but this guy really achieved. And I'm thinking, wow, this stuff actually does work. Whereas in the schemes, you're just taking it as an escape in the surroundings. It's no for educational purposes, although you could use it. So I could be an absolute entertainer, because it wasn't just me sniffing glue in a corner of mine. There'd be other people, and some of the things that we done to have a shared experience is kind of, some people can. I would have groups of people saying the exact same thing. Now, whether it was just me, their mind being open to it, or whether this was actually happened was always the troublesome thing for me. Like, did it happen? Because the other person, he agreed it happened, and he agreed it happened, and so there'd be 4 people saying the same thing. And as you go and you think, well, how can it just have been us? And now I'm seeing a lot of people saying, how can it just have been all of us? Because everybody seems to be seeing it. And that's my big thing is, 1, that they know where they're going, and 2, that man isn't going to say, whoa, hang on, the fucking loonies are taking over the asylum. I want to take over the asylum. I want to bring down the system, because it's wrong. It's rotten. It's been rotten at the core for a long time. The one James done on Monday was very fascinating to see injustice, lies, corruption. I think we've all seen it. My mind, with the craziness that's there, because I didn't hold it back now, was 20/20. If I go to the opticians and they say you've got 20/20 vision, that means I can see clear. No, I can see clearly now. Lorraine's gone. Lorraine Kelly's gone. I can see everything in front of me as it's supposed to be, because the veil has been lifted. And everybody is now slowly but surely creeping forward. So all the DMT, all the psilocybins, all the mushrooms, it's all being taken more. And now you're getting all these other people saying, look, stop taking that thing in a bottle with a label, because all it is what's out there. It's put together. So the witches and the warlocks, they all seem to be coming back. I didn't see this as being shut down.
Well, it ties into what you were talking about earlier. It's like, how that's, in those visionary states, that's more real than the real we have outside the window, right? Yeah. And that, because, like, historically and, throughout the history of psychology and psychiatry, these experiences in altered states, because we're this monophasic culture, it's like, that is all hallucination. I mean, no one even used to research them. It's like any altered state, any experience you see is a hallucination, right? Which means you don't have to try and explain it or understand it. You can just put it in the bin.
Rubbish it.
That's an hallucination. And I think we are starting now to go, actually, that it's a bit more nuanced than that. Just because you're in an altered state doesn't mean that reality is any way less real. And if you're having a shared hallucinations with 4 other people like you are, how can you just kind of completely just rubbish that?
It, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough in that I've committed double career suicide by studying psychedelics and also parapsychology, and so I'm very familiar with these kind of realms of people having experiences of telepathy and seeing the future and all of this kind of stuff. And I don't think we can just discard it all as hallucination too easily, But there is a desire within our consensus reality to, that's taboo, or that's just woo-woo, or that's just hallucination, and it's like, why? There's all of these other indigenous cultures around the world value those states, those experiences. They have and have a deeper connection to nature and probably a better state of mental health in many ways if they aren't suffering under the kind of foot of colonialism.
To me, it enhances intuition, and intuition is something that the female has, natural ability to know when something's wrong. They're very, very smart. Yeah. We have this conversation all the time.
Got instinct.
They're too smart, too clever for us. Because what they do is they create life. We didn't. We are your lecture. We're the seed. That's all we are, the seed giver. That's it. We walk away, put a gang of us in a room, and we become the proverbial, we're just a bunch of them. Whereas a female can keep producing life and keep going. And I always use songs, because songs was the only friends I ever had that spoke to me, because everybody else didn't have that. And it's not me blowing my own trumpet, but they didn't have the intelligence to engage the monkey. The monkey always wanted to talk. If somebody engages me in something, oh, you'll see me, I'll keep going, I get very high. It's no, I'm not taking it to induce that. It's just the way that I am.
Well, on what you were saying, David actually spoke about somebody that had a very successful career after an experiment, like what you're saying, the guy wanted acid to try this, and he went off and became very successful. David spoke about that on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Wednesday in Edinburgh, yeah. And if explain that one to Alan, because it might match what he was saying. It was the gentleman with the fungus that.
Yeah, we've been doing so. We did some experiments on creative problem solving, like people having actually good ideas on psychedelics, which could relate to breakthrough, theories. So we took top level scientists who had technical, theoretical problems which they couldn't solve, and they took psychedelics in a controlled environment, and a lot of them had breakthroughs where they're like, "Oh right, I get it now. I understand. My data's wrong, or this theory's like this, or if you look at it from a different perspective, or it needs to look like this, right?" And they were just having these amazing ideas and breakthroughs, and so, there's even reports of like Kary Mullis, this guy who won the Nobel Prize for discovering PCR polymerase chain reaction. You can take a single strand of DNA and replicate it, which is the basis of all genetic work, studies, research, analyses, testing. Uses PCR. He won the Nobel Prize for it, and then he came out afterwards and said, well, basically I'd taken loads of LSD and I could fly alongside the strands of the molecule at a molecular level and see what was going on, and therefore allowed him to have this breakthrough. So, you can't just call these things hallucinations, or they're very useful hallucinations if they lead to scientific breakthroughs and Nobel Prizes, right? So I think it's more to it than just that. But this is not a really well-known story. This is like we're only just starting to do research.
It's like you say, let's try and poo-poo it. Yeah. I watched the wee Welsh newsreader, Hugh somebody, and he says that it's actually been proven that magic mushrooms can help people with fucking this, that, and the other. Now let's go over to a white lab coat. And he says, yeah, well, what we've done is, we took the clients and we gave them some, and they did hallucinate in the beginning of the experiment. But then for between 6 and up to 8 weeks, other things stayed away. And then he killed it by saying, so what we've done is we've synthetically, and you're like, stop interfering, just fucking leave it alone. If it's that and it works, like you're saying, controlled environment, allow it to just do its natural thing. They baffle me, absolutely baffle me. Why do they want to suppress it? Why shut it down? Because if it enhances what's already there, then expand on it. I wrote a big stupid story. It's all about me trying to put my own life in order and things that's there, but hide myself through the pages. Whereas anybody that knows me reads it and that's you, isn't it? But the guy, there's a 3-way conversation. There's the clinical psychiatry, the guy who walked away and went down the herbal path, and the me. And the me has visions and everything else. And she's baffled. Because what's happening, he says, look, the way this guy is talking and the way you're giving me this story, it sounds like he's emitting too much. So the pineal gland does its wee bit. The guy says that blunt force trauma can bring out too much because it's the way because I used to always say years ago that I found a wee box. I could be in a room. I'd be in here, raking about inside. I found everything. And it always reminds me that when the Twin Towers come down, and all the dust, and I found this wee box, and I couldn't open it, and I'm cracking it. It's like trying to find a tin of tuna, and you've not got the key to open it. You'll use anything, and I prized it open, and I found a seed. Now, I nurtured the seed, and I looked after the seed, and I gave it information, and it grew, and I know at 19, it was fully functioning. And this is, honestly, I'd walk along the street, and it would blow and take me in a direction, and I would either find something, which would be financially, or somebody, or I would avoid something. And I lived by this for years. But then I would smoke dope as well. So I could kind of play with it for years. latterly, maybe 15 years ago, I would tell my wife about this story, and she says to me, "It sounds like you're describing the pineal gland." What the fuck is a pineal gland? What's that? I had no idea what it was, not a clue. And then I found out, it's like, you're joking. That to me is what I've done. I cracked this thing open, and it's been wide open ever since. So if you say to me, "Alan, there's green people outside, they're aliens, they've got a spaceship, and a barrier, can we go and meet them?" I didn't fear. If fear comes towards me, I react differently. I laugh. If you say to me, "You're getting shot," I'll start laughing and think, "Oh no, he's going to shoot me." I've been in instances where wheels have almost come off a van that's going to kill me, and the guy will say, "Oh, look at the fucking wheels are coming off," and I just start laughing. It's a very bizarre thing. So the idea of cracking this thing open and just letting it go, it works for me.
That's beautiful. That's like a total equanimity to life. Sounds like there was a lot of intuition in that little seed as well.
100%. The things that I've done, when I told you about that last revelation, which was the small acts to try and cut me down, again, the songs always talk. So there's millions of songs. Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, again, with the dope, because the dope kind of appeased the monkey. The monkey was happy listening to music and doing that. If it's out there, it wants to keep going. It wanted to keep running until we reached that pinnacle in 91 when I was 21 and I'd had enough. And, with the psychology will say the flight or fight, I couldn't run anymore. I was sick of it. So I ran to the door and I could have went through, but I never looked at it and I just stayed in it. We're no leaving until this is done. So when I come out the other side, everything was really easy for me. So somebody would say, "You need to get a job." Why? You need to make money. I can make money. See that guy over there? He makes money and I could make it better than him because I just wouldn't do the way he does it because he gets caught. So I'll do that. Oh, well, can't really answer that one. So, right, okay, what do I do now that I've got the money? Well, I don't know. That's what I've got to tell you what to do. And it's become very, very bored, really easy. So I then realised I've been cheated the education because I had this paedophile encounter in my head. I never took in school because I'd be out the window. I'd be over there. I just couldn't pay attention because this person's talking at me, telling me to sit still. If I sit still, the shadow's going to catch me and I'm going to want to jump at the window, literally. So I went to the college and I tried to do the counselling and things like that, but I just found, again, the monkey would say, "Right, okay, so I'm here and we're doing open and closed questions. What if you're not wanting to open?" I said, "Well, then they wouldn't be there for counselling." I said, "But what if they've been referred by the courts, as I was?" I suppose you've got a point. And see that, I just like, no, you need to go now because you're daft. You're not even questioning the things that's there. But I'm the daft guy because in their eyes, they would say that I was uneducated, unintelligent. But then I went into construction and I just seem to climb. That's where the monkey comes from. I just climb. Whatever field I go into, I climb. And I get bored and I come back down and I go over there and I try a new one. So to have it actually work, yeah. It's only latterly the last few years I'm thinking, no, if I am delusional, if I'm mentally ill, if I have mental illness, I've actually done all right. I'm 53. Everything that I've done. I mean, I've been involved in TV work, live musicals, commercials, music videos. I write like a madman. I can paint, I can draw, I can do all of these things. You're actually doing all right for what I was told as a child by this fake, fictitious father as a fucking idiot. I'm doing all right, and you're dead, I'm not. So I'm still going with the psychedelics. So is that a possibility that I could have cracked it and left it open?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, psychedelics are just one path to having these experiences, and they're very reliable. They're very profound. They work. The vast majority of people will take psychedelic at a high enough dose. They will have a profound experience, which may or may not transform them. Often they do. But there's many, many ways there, and it's basically us, isn't it? It's our minds, and we have access to this stuff. It's not the psychedelics or the chemicals. You can get there in many, many ways, and stress and trauma is one route. We've done research on people having spontaneous spiritual experiences, and like stress and trauma. If you don't put psychedelics in the picture, stress and trauma is the biggest trigger of spontaneous spiritual experiences, and then things like meditation and yoga and somewhere down the line, but stress and trauma will bring that on, and they may be really challenging. When people have spiritual experiences, they might think they're going mad, right? And actually, they're kind of often going sane, because but you have to kind of go through all of that and deal with the challenges of thinking you're losing your mind and people around you not necessarily understanding you. there's a term we use called like a spiritual emergency, like a spiritual emergency in many ways, which means that it may look like psychosis, but you may actually be on the road to a better state of mental health through having spiritual visionary experiences, which may not be well understood by the people around you. They may think you've lost your mind. You may even think you've lost your mind, but there's a potential there for kind of growth and breakthrough and development.
That last one where I was saying about the thing leading and guiding, when I found out that last revelation that was designed to cut me down, there was a date that the other party was to find out the results, and that was the Monday. On the Sunday, my daughters and my wife had decided they wanted to go shopping, so we went to a specific place. Now, remember, this revelation isn't getting told, because the other party, the mother, had no idea that we had the results and wasn't finding out to the Monday. I found out on the Thursday. There was something happened on the Friday. By the Sunday, we went shopping, and something says to me, let they two go to that shop. The two go to that shop. The monkey's going for a pee. As I walked out, now I'm still questioning, did the party actually know the mother, did they know this was a truth that had been a lie all the time? And it was like, I'm questioning my mind, and it was like something just shoved me and says, here, boom, and pushed me out of the toilet right into the path of the two people, right in front of me. And see the amount of these serendipitous moments I've had. It's just, I can never doubt it. And I can't, before I used to think, no, you can't be right. Now I'm thinking, no, you can't be wrong. And that's why meeting yourself. Something has aligned this and made this happen. I think, no, it's always been right. The story has always been there. It's just turning the pages and letting it actually play. They've taken the book and they've turned it into the live movie, and everybody's involved. There's all these actors and parts to be played. Obviously, he's one of them.
Cheers.
Well done, James.
Aye. So, if I can draw it back to psilocybins, magic mushrooms, DMT, ayahuasca, there's so much on social media, David, and partly why I wanted to get your opinion was, what's the safe route? Is there a safe route? In this country, you spoke at the talk, that it's still illegal. It can exist, but you can't have it, you can't use it, So we see everywhere on social media these people plugging it, selling it, which is great for the cause, I guess. But is there a safe way that people that are struggling, that think that might help me, can we direct them to it? Is that just not feasible in this country yet?
Well, I don't think anything's 100% safe, particularly where, medicine and mental health are concerned. There's always some risk involved, but they're not licensed as medicines yet in the UK. They just have been, like psilocybin's been licensed as medicine as a treatment for depression in Australia. That's the first country in the world to do that. There was a debate in the Houses of Parliament in London last week for 90 minutes about people getting access to psilocybin as a medicine. And it seems like there might be a review of the legislation coming out of the Home Office as a result of that. So maybe we're going to start to see some changes in legality, that they may become licensed as medicines. But even then, it's going to, whether are the NHS going to adopt them as medicines? The treatment currently in Oregon, where they have changed the legislation for psilocybin, the first clinics opened up and they're charging like thousands of dollars for a treatment, one treatment, which is going to be prohibitive if they're not kind of publicly available on public funds, right? So we don't know. There's still like questions of access, even if they are licensed as medicines. And so the current alternatives are that people either buy them from other people, take them and have the risks there, or they grow their own, or pick their own, they grow wild as well, or they go to a retreat centre, perhaps in Holland or Spain or Portugal. And there's risks in all of them, but ultimately, if anybody is considering self-medicating, which a lot of people do, because people are in dire situations and they don't necessarily have the capacity to wait until these things are legalised as medicines. And I'm not saying they are a magic bullet; they're not a magic bullet, but they have been shown to really help a lot of people with difficult mental health conditions for a period of time, maybe only 3 or 6 months, but it gives you some relief.
Yeah.
Then the best thing to do is do your homework, and make sure you know what it is you're taking, you know the risks, you pay attention to setting and preparation.
I was going to say that setting was a big thing you spoke about the other night,
Yeah,
it was quite clever actually.
Yeah, just like you make sure if you are going to do it, you do it in a kind of like good environment with people you trust and know and love, and that you have some preparation and that you have some period of time to integrate these experiences. But there are a lot of like TikTok shamans pop up.
Oh, Jesus, hundreds of them.
Insta shamans.
And that's kind of what made me want to get you onto this podcast so that I can plug it on there and say, well, look, here's a guy that knows, has studied this. How many years?
A few decades.
Just a few decades, you know what I mean? Rather than some guy that's went onto TikTok, oh, look how the higher power told me to do this and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying there isn't a higher power, but, that's kind of why to get you on today was for that reason, to try and educate some of these guys and say, whoa, calm, had the bus a minute. Didn't he just say, take this, and take these quantities, because there is no safe quantity. It's not been tested yet here, so...
I mean, physiologically, these things are safe. Like, if you're genuinely getting magic mushrooms, i.e. psilocybin, they're pretty non-toxic if you're getting the right mushroom, assuming you're not getting the wrong one, because obviously some mushrooms are poisonous.
Yeah.
But psilocybin itself, as a substance, is like there's no like reasonable overdose value. I've looked through the literature. There was one case. Possible overdosing from psilocybin containing mushrooms since 1926, right? And we don't even know if that was actually that specific mushroom. So, they're very non-toxic in that case. There's also very few physiological side effects. They're not completely without physical side effects, but largely, and the risks are mostly psychological, right? That you may have either a traumatic experience or a re-traumatizing experience. You go back to a traumatic experience which you maybe not even remember or aware of, and then that all comes out the box, and
that's the one.
You're not in the best place to contain that or integrate it or hold that experience. That's most often the problems. Or people get what we call ontological shock. It's just like so mind blowing, and changes their worldview.
Stuck to the wallpaper.
Yeah, you're like suddenly like you've been walking along in Legoland for forever, and suddenly you're up in the clouds, and that's a bit of a shock to the old grey matter.
Yeah. Mine's with the people, because what I try and do now is assist people that I know have heavy trauma, and just to try and get them unlock it and let it go, because it's a baggage that doesn't belong to them. They've been carrying it for a long time, and it works. I know it works. I've got a few people, but there's that last wee bit. See, because the DMT, it will give them that last part. Would you suggest that anybody that's carrying hidden trauma really needs to, because my mind, the way that I've worked it, and this was just within the last, I'd say 72 hours, because I'm hearing more and more about this. I've got people waiting in the wings, but I wouldn't advise them to do nothing until they're totally cleared. And I'm saying to them, they're explaining certain parts to it, and I'm doing the monkey mind and dismantle it all and saying, right, okay, so the mind has to be cleared first. The way I see it is you can't have any excess baggage there, because one, it's going to spoil. It's like trying to go on the waltzers with a suitcase. It's just going to get flung about, and just get ready of that, and then boom, the road ahead. Because to me, the people that are suffering in trauma, they're not going to go any darker. They didn't realise that they're the actual light that's walking in the darkness. So to clear out the last of it, and then just sit themselves comfortable. We've been doing it with a caravan. We're trying to get it into a face-to-face. The last bit goes, they're so comfortable, relaxed, there's no threat, every box is ticked, they know that if they want the door, it's there. And we're just getting ready to just do that final boom, and just do the last bit. So this, the timing-wise, what you said, is absolutely perfect, because I didn't know James was even going to your show. And then he says, by the way, I've managed to get Dave, he's going to come. And when did you tell me? This morning. So again, there's that crazy-ass plant, whatever it is, it's just doing something, because I'm thinking, right, I think I've got it. That the last bit of baggage, because I've got the big bit, the last wee bit, just clear it out, and then there's nothing. And then it's like, right, okay, get ready. And then you're ready to go, and then bang, It just hits you.
Well, that's the thing, though. How do we know we're ever really ready? I mean, and how much baggage do we have, and how much baggage do we not know about? But what we kind of can figure on is that psychedelics, mushrooms, DMT, whatever, will often just bring all that stuff up. It's all going to come up, and you're going to have to.
So anything that you know is in there. So if you say to me, Dad, I'd be like, no, there's no, but secretly I know there is.
Yeah.
It's the ones that you're saying subconsciously you don't know is there, because you wouldn't know it's there, because the mind has managed to do a successful job in nailing the coffin shut.
Yeah.
But everything else, if that's it, you reckon that they would be fine candidates?
No, I think because people are going and getting treatment who have untreated trauma. They're depressed, they're anxious, they've whatever, and they're struggling, and they're going to retreats or they're going to clinical trials and in a held way, and they're having an experience, and it's giving them some change, right? They're maybe having reliving or rethinking about their traumas in different ways. They're seeing it from a different perspective. They're able to have perhaps some insight about it or catharsis. It's just like, all right, I've kind of just expelled that, or it's been in the box for so long and it's been running their programming, and they take it out of the box and stare it in the face. And
that's the one
that allows you to kind of move forward a bit with it. So I don't think necessarily that there's a point in which you are completely ready, like, I've cleared the decks and I'm ready to go into the storm. It's like that never really fully happens. But it's like knowing that you are going into a storm and be prepared for that. Yeah, be ready for that, basically.
There was one of the slides from the other night, David, I've got it here just to show you. It was quite positive in my mind when you were discussing this, and I'll show you it so you know what one it is. I thought if you spoke on that here, it might fling a more positive slide. I just grabbed it with my phone, but there's two there. There's that one and that one were the two that kind of got me the best.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of an offshoot from the direct mental health stuff. Yeah, I know it well.
You know it well. Good. I thought that was quite positive, so I thought maybe if you could maybe hit on that for a little, just the positives and the mental health side of it.
There is many kind of positive things that can potentially come out of psychedelic experiences, and some of it is to do with, reductions in depression, anxiety, people feeling better and changing their life, but also people changing people's awareness and consciousness around all kinds of things, and in particular these slides talk to people's relationships to nature, and we found. And this is a bit that sounds like a cat food advert in our survey of, we had a whole bunch of people who had taken psychedelics, and we asked them, has taking psychedelics changed how much you feel connected to nature? And 100% of people said they felt more connected to nature as a result, which is something you never get in this kind of research, in psychological research. And that not just changes in people's attitudes to nature, but people changing their behaviors. Over half of the people who are taking psychedelics change their diet as a result of tripping, of taking psychedelics. Just over half of them said they'd increased the amount of gardening they do because they've taken psychedelics. And presumably,
I went home and asked my partner what she was up to. She's never out the garden now.
There you go. That's what, probably growing magic mushrooms.
Yeah, sorry.
No, just that. But that essentially, so, if we were to kind of sum up what we're discovering about psychedelic use in this kind of research era now, where we can actually do science with psychedelics again after 50, 60 years, is that they increase connectivity, generally speaking, and they increase it on a neurological level in your brain, on a psychological level. You feel more connected to your subconscious, your unconscious, your past history, your childhood trauma, whatever it is, your desires and fears. Even on a sociological level, people feel more connected to each other. It increases people's empathy and openness to experience, and more willing to engage with other cultures and practices and other people. And then also on an ecological level, people feel more connected to the natural world, the natural environment, turn into rampant gardeners. And that spills over onto this kind of cosmological level as well. People feel more connected to the cosmos and also the divine, if they go that far, in something spiritual. So effectively, psychedelics seemingly have a trend, and not for everybody, but they have this tendency to increase connectivity from the biological through to the spiritual, on every level. That's a way of kind of summarising a lot of what they do.
Yeah.
So that.
Did we ever get a real answer on, do you think that will ever be achieved without the use of psychedelics? Do you think that, say it comes down to genetic coding, so, like my kids, their kids, do you think at some point it'll just be a natural, they will be in touch with everything that's available out there without having to induce the mind?
It could be, yeah, I think so, but it means we have to kind of get over our trauma, our intergenerational trauma, our tendency for re-traumatizing ourselves through war and politics and, capitalism and
But do you find that's where it is, though? Because all of these things seem to be the agenda is someone else that suppressed all of these things, that somebody that then goes and does a psychedelic route then starts to change everything, to look at things differently, that they're actually thinking, hang on, wait a minute. Was there never a time when that was okay, that was what we'd done, and then somebody come along and says, no, back in the box, and shut it down, and now we're rediscovering and reopening Pandora's box and letting the shite out, and the good stuff's there. So now we've managed to dig our way through, think, hang on a minute, that's actually quite clever, and that's clever, so we can then in turn pass that back down the genetic code.
Well, let's hope
and
so.
Then it goes that's a bit answer.
I think let's be hopeful. Let's be hopeful. Yeah, for sure. And there is an opportunity here for changing and growing and developing. And yet, there's never been a utopia. There's never been a time, and I'm not sure there necessarily is a utopia. We're complex, messy beings, and we do stupid and complex and messy things, and we have to kind of learn how to live with the consequences of a lot of that. But I think things like psychedelic experiences, or if you have a near-death experience, people change in exactly the same kind of ways. Makes them more humanitarian, more concerned about nature, less bothered about the petty things in life. So these things are all positive experiences which contribute towards maybe just a better way of being, generally speaking. But I don't necessarily think. Well, let's be hopeful. But maybe there is no real utopia that we can access. But I think we can definitely help to improve things in some ways, but not just with psychedelics, just with these changes of consciousness, be it through.
That's what I mean. When you change that consciousness, you then bring on that empathy thing, which then makes you be empathetic towards somebody else's needs, which they didn't have to be on the same trip level, but just think, wow, this is really nice. I saw a friend the other day there who, just in company in nice people, broke down because it's no destined for them. Or that's what they believed. And that doesn't involve any psychedelics. It's just, if somebody becomes empathetic with that, it rubs on for the next guy, and then he thinks, this actually feels nice. And that's that evolutionary thing that's actually starting to, in my mind, that's what's turning now. Because it's all been revolution. It's just been the dog chasing its tail, the wars, everything. Stay in the house, go out the house, do this, do that, rules, regulations, get up, go to work, have a holiday, go to work, die. It just doesn't change. Now people are like, whoa, stop the fucking bus. I won't go for this. This is shite. I'm not having this anymore. So the empathy thing for one guy then says, look at this. Look at the loveliness of that flower. I don't think you need to be induced in the mind to appreciate something that's really lovely. It's the distraction of the grey, mundane, that somebody says, look, come over here, and takes you off man's path. Because when they used to say before, you go out and you cut your own path in life. Well, unfortunately, you're going to walk on man's tar roads because he's already paved it for you. So you can't pave your own way. But to distract yourself off it and have a look at nature and everything else, DMT, you open that for one guy, he then becomes the teacher that then says, look at this. The foragers saying, look, didn't go down the medicine route? Try that and try that for these things. Like, wow, and like you're saying, maybe the mushrooms can help with the depressions and everything else and overcoming these anxieties that are there, because they're all social anxieties. They're not something that you inherit just because. It's generally because there's things there. You've not got enough money to pay the electricity. The kids need shoes, da-da-da. Man seems to have worked this into us that, the £80 shoes, you could buy a £10 pair, £20, £30. Why does it have to be £80? No, you've got to. And that induces this anxiety that then somebody steps in and says, here, gub two of them, and next minute, fuck your trainers, you're getting 9, look, there's 20 quid, you can get yourself trainers, they're not to cover your feet. Everybody's evolutionary thoughts change gradually, And that's where I love the idea of the psychedelic stuff for the people that require it. But then I think the brush-off effect will work with everybody having to do it.
I agree. I think that brush-off effect, however it's stimulated, is beautiful and has its own contagious power. But at the same time, we're having to contend with increasingly more means of distraction to kind of get it stuck in a rat race as well. You know, like the power of social media and all these different platforms. Everyone just walking around staring at their phones. Artificial intelligence, like, is kind of creating all these algorithms and getting people locked into kind of like cognitive rabbit holes, right? And so there is also, at the same time, more and more challenges that we're facing, particularly for the younger generations coming through who've just grown up glued to the screen.
But that's where we went. But look at this.
Yeah.
It's collective minds. Just,
that's great.
There's no fighting, there's no arguing.
Wonderful.
Exactly. And at what price? What is the price of this? You know what I mean? We didn't have to be told what to do by this thing.
Sure.
It's just fascinating to watch. Oh no, that's that fucking word again.
It's hopefully fascinating. It's hopefully educational to someone. So, I mean, that's us getting into about an hour, guys. To sum up, psychedelics. Or, no, I've got one question before we go. Right, you hear so many people on social media talking about their experience of psychedelics, ayahuasca, DMT in particular, where they go off somewhere and they interact with some sort of blue being. Now, is that, in your mind, with the studying that you've done, is that a theme that is maybe copied from one person to another, or do you think that there maybe is some other realm that these hallucinogenics take us to?
With Smurfs.
Yeah, you know, because I've heard so many people describing this being with multiple limbs or multiple strands to the being, but they're all saying it's like blue and it's this. And I mean, that's from people in America, people in London, England, Scotland, wherever they're from, all on social media. Hear the similar kind of tale. Everything's all so colourful as well. I mean, do you think... What's your opinion on that?
Well, I've thought about it a lot.
Is it coincidence?
Well, this is it. I mean, it's a bit of a, endless debate. It's something I've been studying and writing about for over 20 years now. We've actually put out a couple of books about DMT entities.
Plug your books, please.
Oh, yeah. There's one called DMT Dialogues, another one called... know what it's called. DMT Entity Encounters, that's it. Right. DMT Entity Encounters. And we kind of corralled the greatest minds we could think of on the planet, had anything interesting to say about this very question of, are these entities real, or is it just a trick of brain chemistry? And they're great books, well worth a read, but we still don't have any clear, solid answers. But it's a super interesting question.
And
because
is there a theme that everybody seems to pick up on? There is something.
Not always, but there is definitely patterns which emerge, which don't seem coincidental. Like, for instance, lots of people naively, independently, are on their first experiences often with DMT or ayahuasca, encounter these giant praying mantises, which, I mean, it's not just, it's a giant praying mantis. They always seem to be doing the same thing, which is they're kind of leaning over you, doing some kind of weird operations on your brain and retuning you, maybe kind of farming you for your emotions or retweaking you, and they have no emotions themselves. And it's that's such a specific experience that for hundreds of people independently to have that same experience makes you question well, why? Is there a little kind of neuron in your brain specifically designed to trigger that experience? Or are these things have their own independent reality somewhere else in a different dimension? Which sounds far-fetched, but when you have the experience, it seems more real than this real, right?
Oh, so, definitely. Yeah,
and that's one of the kind of abiding features of it. Of those people who had DMT and had an encounter with some being, which is very common at a high dose, there was a research study in this leading medical hospital and university in the States. Thousands of people took part in the survey, and they looked at their prior beliefs. And of those that were atheists before that experience, less than half of them remained atheist afterwards, right? So this is a 10-minute psychedelic experience where if you have an encounter, it will convert more than half of all atheists into non-atheists in the space of 10 minutes. It's deeply profound and absolutely mind-blowingly puzzling. And we don't have any certainty about any of it. I try and be agnostic, but some of the evidence is really mind-blowing and compelling.
So do you think then it is all in our minds? You know how you were explaining the other night that without psychedelics, the mind is noisy but less active. But then with the inducement of some sort of psychedelic, the brain is more active but quieter. How is it all in our minds? Is it just a thing that's in there that we can't access? It's just part of who we are, part of the beast that we are. Is it just all in our minds?
Well, our reality it's hard to say, because our reality is kind of all in our minds. The world we perceive and experience and think is kind of tangible and physical is recreated by our mind anyway. It's like our best guess of what the world is like outside based on our information from our senses. And we kind of share some collective ideas about what that is. But it's not the same for everyone. Everyone perceives the world slightly differently, and yet we all kind of, through language, assume that other people are sharing the same place as us. But, so everything's all in our mind. Reality is completely in our mind. There is a physical world which we can perceive a small slither of, right? We just see a particular part of the light spectrum, part of the sound spectrum. We don't see electromagnetism. Other species do. So, we only get a taste of reality anyway, and then we have these other experiences, perhaps induced through chemicals in the brain, and they take us somewhere else and give us another experience of reality. We can't really know which reality is real or what is reality. We're working from an impoverished standpoint anyway.
It's that enhanced reality. It's the same reality. It's just brighter, bigger, better. It feels more organic. The other one is all the aforementioned, all the initials, all the abbreviations, right up to the ayahuasca. Is there, you'd go in and you'd be like, I like a bit of that hash, but I like that stuff, and I like that. Is there one, do you know what I mean? Does each one have the desired effect to actually open the door? As in, for the manipulated LSD to the mushroom, to the ayahuasca, all the psilocybins, if you put them all in a bowl, will each one of them do the same job? Or is one going to take you another?
I think all these different all have the potential to take you to these different spaces of having, whatever we call it, higher state of consciousness or mystical experience or insight or even glue. They all have the potential to do that. It's going to be different for everybody, different dose.
That's it.
I have to take it different times. Some people, I can't go near THC. I can't go near cannabis. It sends me crazy. But
same. It makes me paranoid. I can't.
It makes me so paranoid.
It's a paranoia.
Yeah, it's all paranoia.
Yeah.
And yet, magic mushrooms will give me an extraordinary experience. So it's it's not the same for everybody either. But anything can do it. Even just breathing. If you were to kind of
the Wim Hof breathing.
That'll get you there.
Things go bananas.
But before we don't tell everyone because they'll make air illegal soon.
I think Bill Gates is taxed that already. He's got the patent on that one. The one that, because the social media fires that much stuff at you, and you think, "Oh, hang on, just slow down," because you've never done the research. It's all fairly new to these people. The one for me is the freezing cold bathwater. What if you've got a heart condition? It must be the shock, and it's the same with it. That was always my question, would be the same as James's, but how does anyone know what that mind is going to do once? If you, I can't take the hash, because it makes me paranoid, so it's something you wouldn't do. How does a mind that's never tried it, how does it know? Or is it just, oh well.
Yeah, well,
sorry, you're on your
you
own.
don't necessarily know.
Until you try.
It's all about the setting then, isn't it? You've got to get in the comfortable setting with
a lot of it.
Yeah,
and
people you love and
I
trust.
think comfortability with everything.
In the future, we may have more insight into, we do the research and we find out, okay, you may have a greater tendency to have this kind of reaction based on your genes or your family history or something like that. We could probably have a better sense of it through better science, but ultimately we can never know 100%.
But that's where we are right now, and we were actually on the doorstep of opening it, because I didn't see this. Obviously, I wasn't here in the 60s, so I was born in the 70s. I was born in 1970, so I don't know what it would have been like then, but I didn't hear enough. And that to me is did man just say, right now, kids, back in the box, just leave it. Right, okay, we just go along normal. And everybody's been flatlining, apart from the odd few that's darted off to the side thing. I'm not going back doing that road's shite. I'm going to go doing this one. And all these people have been, latterly, there's just loads of them just all making their own way. And you think, wow, this is amazing.
I guess scratch the surface and everybody wants to be liberated.
Oh, I think so, and I think that is the liberation they owe, is to watch people finally saying, they're waking up and they're smelling the coffee, they're smelling the flowers, they're smelling things, it's nice, but they're also looking behind them and smelling the bullshit that's been fed to them for all these decades. And
that's the years of suppression, isn't it? You know what I mean? So, yeah. Right, gentlemen and Rebecca, it is a lovely day. I have sucked up enough of your time. I would like to call it a day there and thank you very much for coming on. But parting comment, David, if you've any advice for anyone that might be listening to this out there, go on, give us a bit of advice on your studies, your wisdom.
Well, first of all, thank you both for having me on the show. It's been great to meet you both. Just that, look, just do your homework, basically, whatever you're going to do. If you're going to do something, I'm certainly not encouraging anybody to do anything illegal. People will do it anyway. They do it in their droves. It's just, just do your homework, preparation, setting, substance, integration. Just make sure you're with people you know and love and trust, and that they know what they're doing or you know what you're doing, and just like that, really.
And
enjoy it.
Where are you off to next? What's your next talk?
I've just
if you want to plug your mates, the business, and if you want, your books, obviously.
Seed Talks, it is. I've just finished a 3-day tour up here in Scotland, and I'm off to Ireland in a couple of weeks. I'll be giving talks for a week all around Ireland, Cork, Dublin, Galway.
Yeah, good. And the books, again, just one more time, where can we get your books? Is it the usual?
All disreputable online booksellers, of course. But there's 2 books we have on DMT, one called DMT Dialogues and another one called DMT Entity Encounters. So,
brilliant.
Fascinating.
Dr. Luke, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to play us into this one.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we got something out of that.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I know I did.
Love it. Keep them on a minute.
When I'm watching the squirrel down there, I know my mind's out there running about behind things.
Just a second. Be with you in a second. Just Alan, parting comment is you.
Oh, well, I would have to say toodle pip for now and hi-ho silver away.
David?
Into the mushroom fields.
We'll leave on a smile. Adios, amigo.